What does an Italian opera, aged ricotta, and an egg-shaped fruit all have to do with a Sicilian pasta dish? Well, today we're going to learn about pasta alla Norma, and I gotta be honest, I'm a little nervous because Eggplant and it's a bit of a white whale. Well, purple one. And I've always had a hard time trying to cook it, but I'm gonna learn the technique today to make this dish. So we're gonna learn about that on Bon Appetit. For this recipe, we're gonna need 3/4 pound of eggplant, about 1 to 3 depending on your type, sliced into half moons, about a ½ inch thick. 400 grams of tubular pasta, rigatone, penne, or the like. 400 grams of canned whole peeled tomatoes, San Marzano preferred, crushed into 1 inch or smaller. 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, 1 to 2 cloves of garlic minced, about 6 tablespoons of olive oil, but we're only going to start with 2 and work our way up, 1/8 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, 2 ounces of Ricotta Salata cheese shredded. This is the original cheese, but if you can't find it, a half and half mixture of pecorino romano and feta works just as well. Salt and basil for garnish. All right, we're gonna go deep into some eggplant knowledge and learn a lot about salata. So if you wanna skip any of these parts, do the timestamps down below. Otherwise, let's dive right in. Eggplants are a part of the nightshade family, just like tomatoes and potatoes. And like tomatoes, eggplants are a fruit, technically a berry, and just like tomatoes, you can eat their nutrient-rich outer skin. But like potatoes, you should cook them fully so that they're easily edible. Now what's interesting is, like the skin of a tomato is very bitter, eggplants are thought to be extremely bitter tasting, especially when they overripe. But that's true of older eggplants, but a lot of modern varietals have had that bitterness bred out of them. And so you don't have to salt or dry brine your eggplant to deal with that flavor. But it is still optional if you'd like to remove some of the moisture from the eggplant and help the skin seize up, which will allow it to be firmer during the cooking process. While I was looking up information on eggplant, I kept seeing the term aubergine pop up. And I was curious, what is the difference? Nothing. Fact is that aubergine and eggplants are exactly the same thing. It is just the common term, especially in Europe, for an eggplant. And it stems from the French word for eggplants, aubergine, and in fact, that is the closer term to the original Dravidian languages term for eggplants. And you can even hear it in parts of Africa and Asia with words like brinjal, banjan, and baidanjane, all sounding similar to aubergine. So then where do we get our term eggplant from? Well, the reason is because of the varietals that were brought by the immigrants into America. These things were white on the outside and were shaped in the bulbous fashion so it looked like a hen's egg, thus an eggplant. Still a fruit though. So in today's episode, we're going to be cutting our eggplant into half moon slices, but you might also see sometimes there are full moon slices or cubed for pasta alla Norma. Now, the way that you cut your eggplant might determine the way that you want to cook your eggplant. Slices are perfect with shallow frying because that direct high heat sears the one side, giving it a bit of Maillard reaction without letting it get too soggy. If you were to try to cube into a shallow fry, you run the risk of letting it get really soggy before you actually get to get a lot of heat on all of the different sides. On the other hand, a deep fry is perfect for cubes because that sudden heat on all sides is going to cause the flesh to seize up and stiffen, which will help it hold its shape better for when you serve it in the pasta dish. Now, of course, the texture and taste of eggplant is cultural and familial, so cook it however you see best. But today I want to go for a nice sear on the outside, but have it a little bit soft. Like its cousin, Ricotta Salata is an Italian whey cheese from sheep's milk. But unlike its cousin, Ricotta Salata, salata meaning salted, is salted and aged for at least 90 days. These 3 months allow the cheese to firm up and get a feta-like consistency, which makes it perfect for things like salads or adding on as a garnish at the very end. But it is very salty, which means you don't want to perfectly salt your dish and then add this on. So we're gonna be using a little bit less salt today inside the main dish because when we add this cheese on, it's gonna bring more salted flavor with it. The Italian word for eggplant is melanzana. So why is this pasta alla Norma? Well, to figure that out, we're gonna have to travel back to the 1800s in Catania, Sicily, where this pasta was created. Now, there are two theories as to why it gets its name pasta alla Norma, and both of them are based on Vincenzo Bellini's opera, Norma. Now, one theory is that another playwright, Nino Martolio, is said to exclaimed, "Now that's Norma," when he had tasted this pasta, as if to say, "Now that is as exquisite as the opera." But another theory is that pasta alla Norma, or pasta with Norma, actually comes from the pasta that was served on the opening night of Norma on December 26, 1831. So it's not pasta alla Norma as if Norma was an ingredient, but rather pasta alla Norma, the pasta that was served with the show. Eggplant, cheese, history, cooking technique. I think we got it. Let's give this dish a try. To start, we're gonna slice our eggplant and put in a colander well covered with salt. Cover with a paper towel and a little bit of weight and let the eggplant sit for 1 hour to force out the moisture and add a bit of flavor. Now rinse thoroughly and dry with a paper towel. In a non-stick pan or cast iron, bring about 2 tablespoons of oil to medium heat. Wait for the shimmer and then carefully place your eggplant half moons in and cook on either side for 5 to 6 minutes each before removing to a paper towel to soak up some of the excess oil. Be sure to add oil as necessary so you can see some bubbling, but don't add too much at once, only a tablespoon at a time, or else the eggplant will just soak it all up. Continue as necessary until all of your eggplant is done. Next, we're gonna make a marinara with the eggplant oil as our base. I get it. I know that there are gonna be people out there who say you should never cook tomatoes in a cast iron. But there are people far smarter than me who say that you can do it every once in a while if your cast iron's well seasoned. And I'll put links down below if you don't believe me. Just check the description. All right, back. Add some oil if needed so that you have at least 1 to 2 tablespoons in your pan and raise the heat to medium-high. Add in your garlic and red pepper flakes, stirring constantly until they become fragrant, about 30 seconds. Next, add your paste and stir constantly until it starts to fry, about another 30 seconds. And then add your crushed tomatoes. Once it is bubbling, reduce to a simmer and let it sit for at least 10 minutes. This is the perfect time to prep your pasta. Bring a pot of well-salted water to boil and toss your pasta in. Once al dente, move your pasta over to your marinara along with half a cup of pasta water and stir to incorporate. Now add your eggplant back in and incorporate that and turn off the heat. Add some torn basil and cheese and mix it all together. And I kept one of my slices to the side so that I could use the eggplant as a garnish for presentation. Now serve with some fresh basil and cheese on top. Boom! Pasta alla Norma. All right, I'm a little nervous. Let's see how I did. Gotta make sure to get a piece of the eggplant in there. Not too bad. It's nice because though the eggplant is really soft, it's not super oily like I've had and sort of failed at in the past. And the Ricotta Salata adds a nice little bit of texture, a bit of a crumbly bite to an otherwise soft dish. And using less of the marinara sauce meant that I got to experience more of that eggplant flavor in this. You know what? I'm gonna consider this a success. Yes, I probably could have cut my eggplant a little bit thinner, but you know what? That's for next time. Now, what kind of dish are you nervous about cooking in the kitchen? Leave a comment down below and I might try to do it in an upcoming video. Also, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps as we're growing. And as always, study at the dinner table. We'll catch you next time on Bob Appetit.